Radio Raumstation.
Music 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
Heute mit Alan Hamilton. Hi Alan, if I may say so. We have heard so many of your music already, so now we want to know you a little bit more. We love you as a creative and nice songwriter from Maybole in UK, and you send us many tracks throughout the year. So tell us, what was your first touch in music in your life?
I'd just like to say before we begin, Melanie, thank you very much for having me here today. And to answer your question, I started taking piano lessons at the age of 5. I had a wonderful teacher named Robert Glenn. I would go weekly and stayed with Mr. Glenn until my early teens. I started playing banjo around this time and had wandering feet, like many other teenagers. So stopped my piano studies and started wandering.
As we mainly all did. So, at that time you were influenced by any well-known band or songwriter?
No, my father was a singer, a tenor singer. So it was mostly Scottish ballads that were popular in the house around that time when I was 5 years of age. I started accompanying my father about the age of 8 in various venues around the town. I was born in Paisley, in the west coast of Scotland. My mother also played piano and mouth organ, so music was being played regularly at home.
Wow, that's great. I'm a little bit jealous about that. So, you have been musically educated.
Yes, I spent my early years taking exams with Trinity School of Music, but latterly with the London Royal College of Music, but still under the guidance of Robert Glenn, my music teacher.
This must have been a great guy. I think you had a lot of fun together. So what was the first song you ever wrote, and how do you feel about this in today's time? Please introduce this song, because after we will play it.
I started writing about the age of 20. I don't have a record of these early compositions. The earliest composition I have a copy of was composed around 1972 and is called An Ode to Billy Mackenzie. On the recording I'm playing Hammond organ with Andy Grosser on bass and John Nichols on drums. The trio used to do jingles for a radio station in Edinburgh called Radio Edinburgh. And instead of taking payment, we took studio time. This enabled us to record some tracks, and this is one of these tracks. So here we are, An Ode to Billy Mackenzie.
great listen from your musical roots, I must say. But tell us, how was your life when you had been a young man? Did you live same place than now? Did you make experience in some big cities or abroad, for example?
I left school at age 15 and worked as an apprentice tailor. I played banjo at this time and played with various folk and country music bands around the city of Glasgow in Scotland. I joined the Merchant Navy at 17 as a galley boy and became a second cook on cargo ships sailing around the world. I left this at the age of 19 as it really wasn't for me and went home to Paisley, my hometown, to practice piano. After a year I got my first job in a Glasgow ballroom, playing strict ballroom dancing music, quick steps, etc., foxtrots and so on. I then joined a trio and got work on a cruise liner called the SS Himalaya and cruised the Mediterranean for 6 months, which was very nice, thanks very much. Coming home to Glasgow, I formed my first jazz trio. The trio consisted of piano, bass and drums and worked around central Scotland, playing clubs and pubs. I also started backing a variety of cabaret artists around this time and around Scotland. I played with many different musicians and singers around this period, eventually moving to London in 1975. I took up a musical director's job with a singer called Malcolm Roberts. I spent a couple of years touring with Malcolm and then became a freelance player, doing studio sessions, TV, radio work, mostly with the BBC, Maida Vale in London. I also toured in different bands for a number of years. I built my first recording studio around 1990 in my garage in the East End of London. I moved back to Scotland in 2003 and still live there now, working from my home studio, which I built in my garden.
That sounds very nice, so you can play and sing with the birds outside. Do you have brothers or sisters? And in this case, do they play instruments as well, like you?
I have a younger brother and an older sister. As I mentioned earlier, my father sung and my mother played piano and mouth organ. My brother is a drummer and my sister doesn't play an instrument. Music nights were a regular occurrence as I grew up, and my maternal grandparents, they loved to sing. So party nights were held often, and I would play for everyone who wanted to sing.
You got me, Alan. Seems you know me, so tell us something else. Do you mirror your feelings in your songs? And which one was your deepest touch? And maybe you can introduce this song, because we would love to play it later.
I always try to convey my feelings in my work. I haven't written any songs with regards to containing lyrics, and all of my compositions are instrumental. However, I did compose a piece with the plight of Gaia in my thoughts. This piece is attempting to convey the calmness and its counterpart, disturbance, naturally displayed by Gaia every day in different parts of the earth. Hopefully I accomplished this to some degree in this piece. The piece is called To Gaia with My Love, and here it is.
Wow, 3 times. Wow, Helen. I nearly made me cry, this song. It's really beautiful. So tell us, what was your biggest dream when you started to enter job and maybe career? Doing music always accompanied you? Or had been times where you had to focus on something else?
As a working musician, it was never my goal to be anything other than accomplished as a player and composer. In my 70s now, I well realise that one never completes the journey as the road just keeps getting longer, and there is always new stuff to learn and evolve with. My other love of life is Tai Chi Chuan and related Taoist studies. My third love is my garden, and of course these are all shared with my one true love and partner of 47 years, Marion, and my wider family, of course.
Yes, of course, I think so. So you must be really happy man. And if you look to nowadays, you mainly focus on jazz fusion tracks? Considering instruments, how many do you play and which one is your favorite?
Yes, my love of jazz fusion started in the late 60s when I first heard McCoy Tyner. Then he was followed by a succession of, musical giants. Too many to mention, but probably most notably Chick Corea, John McLaughlin, and the, fantastic Joe Zawinul. Aren't they all fantastic, of course? But as I say, these are only the tip of the proverbial iceberg. Personally, I play all keyboards, flute, Latin percussion, and the banjo.
That's a lot, Alan. Wow. So you do record all in your home studio? Or do you play sometimes still live with people? Or you mainly work on your own?
I do all my recording in my music studio at home. I have worked mainly solo for the last 5 years or so, apart from the odd collaboration. I live in a very rural part of Scotland now and stopped gigging some years ago. I occasionally get a visit now from fellow musicians, but mainly I prefer to work alone. In my long career I have played from solo piano to large-scale orchestras and just about everything in between. So I've enjoyed the life of a freelance travelling musician. But that is gone now, and my journey forward requires peace and quiet, and without the distraction of others. I teach Chinese internal martial arts and find what I require in human interaction there.
Yes, nature is for sure very inspiring. So tell me something different. If you could choose one instrument to take into heaven, which one would that be?
An interesting question, and one that is not easily answered. However, I will say that whatever my next journey, or wherever my next journey takes me, after this one has expired, I hope that I find something to make music with, even if that's only to be my breathing. I really don't have a favourite instrument, and can hear music standing in the forest or walking over the hills or sitting by a stream or listening to an angelic voice like your own, Melanie. Yes, I am hopeful music will be there in some form to share when I get there.
I like this thought very much, Alan, so I hope it will be a big jam party with a lot of musicians and we will have fun. So, but now, which of your songs you made last year you think is your favorite right now and why? And please introduce it to the audience, cause we are going to play it after.
I probably don't have favourite tracks, but one that stands out for me is one that I composed called Glenifer Braes. This piece was inspired by the memories of the place where I was born and grew up. So many memories are carried from that distant place now, and hopefully conveyed in a musical sense in this piece. So in that respect, my choice would be Glenaffer Braes, and here it is.
Another of your really amazing and wonderful productions. I'm a huge fan of you, so tell us something more. If you write and create your songs, do you have any painting moment in mind? Is it more related to people or nature or feelings? If you would need to paint a picture, what do you think you would paint by listening to one of your songs?
I can't say that I've ever thought in these terms. but I would like to think that my music creates imagery for the listener. And of course, like a painting, that imagery will be different for each listener. I do immerse myself in my compositions, but like all things we do in life, some will have more emotional content than others. Joy, pain, laughter, grief, and so on. All will play their part at some point or another. So then, what would I paint by listening to one of my pieces? That could only depend on the piece and the moment.
I think so. But tell me anyway, if you would be able to play your music in an exhibition of a famous painter, which artist you would love to be partner in this?
Well, I've actually composed some music for a couple of different artists for their exhibitions in London. It was a most enjoyable experience, and I would gladly do so again should the occasion arise. However, if I had the choice of a famous painter, then it would be Salvador Dali.
Ah, surreal. Yes, I think so. It's a kind of jazz fusion. Yes, and okay. So if we speak about that, which one of your songs you think would fit the best to this painter? And can you introduce it to us? Because we're going to play it after.
Ah, that would be The Dream, painted in 1931. I would pick this because it reflects an experience in my life when I was in intensive care and in life support for almost 2 months. This painting could easily have been in some of my delirious adventures. And so I composed the piece sometime after recovering from this illness. The piece is called And Then the Rain Fell. Dali's painting of the dream fits perfectly with this experience, and so this would be my choice. And here it is. And then the rain fell.
Again, 3 times wow and head off. What a song and production. I'm really amazed. So, is there any special moment in your life related to your music you would like to share with us here?
My son John is a singer-songwriter, and I think that although I have played with and for many great musicians and singers, the feeling of joy when sharing music with my son has unquestionably been the greatest experience in my musical life. Highlights in my career were playing with Maurice White of Earth, Wind and Fire and Tina Turner, whilst working in the nightclub on the QE2 crossing from New York to England. One night, out of the blue, Maurice White came up and joined the band, spending a couple of hours with us. There are many musicians aboard these ships, and some brass players from one of the show bands and a percussionist also came along and joined us. That was a night to remember indeed. I worked with Tina Turner on a UK tour in the 90s, another fabulous experience and another one to remember. She is an electrifying artist, and I don't ever remember working with anyone with so much physical and emotional energy. Truly outstanding.
I'm really moved about that because you shared these kind of energy, thoughts and personal feelings about the things moving you. So let's see what will be next for us. Tell us on what song you work right now and a little how you record and mix it. And maybe introduce a little so that we can play some parts, if you maybe allow to be a little bit sneak preview to you.
So right now I'm working on a piece called Analog Warrior. It is a jazz fusion piece and features a strong sense of rhythm, the warrior, and is played mainly on analog instruments. And I included the synth, the Minimoog, as an analog instrument. I know that this might raise some eyebrows though. I record through a 24-channel analog desk into Cubase, where I do all my mixing and mastering. I use high-quality plugins in the mixing and mastering process. From a recording viewpoint, I begin with the rhythm section. That is, if it's a jazz fusion piece or a jazz rock piece, and add the other parts in order of the musical score. I may alter things as I progress, and I may hear additional sounds or parts as the piece progresses. However, in general, the piece will stick to the original score. The piece, Analog Warrior, although unfinished, contains the main core of instruments which I envisage for the whole piece. So, electric piano, brass, synth, bass, drums and percussion. Electric guitar will feature later on, but it hasn't been completed yet. So here we are, the unfinished Analog Warrior.
Another great piece of music, hey, Alan? I must tell you something. If I have to go to heaven, I would take the Mini Moog. Because it's really one of my favorite ever. And yes, so you gave me this as the last song here. Thank you from the audience. Thank you from myself. We are happy to learn a little about really beloved songwriter Alan Hamilton and hope you had some fun with this interview. Have a good time, and we hear you in the radio, hopefully throughout the world. Bye.
Well, thank you, Melanie, for this opportunity. And I'd just like to say I've enjoyed it very much. So thanks once again. Bye-bye.
This was Mr. Alan Hamilton. My name is Melanie Collie.
Radio Raumstation. Original music 24 hours a day.
Yeah.